1, 2. Ah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hello. 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 Good evening. This is Molten Music Technology signing in for an evening, hopefully not a very long evening, because I am cream crackered. Sound is good, is it? Hopefully from the microphone. I've only just realised that I hadn't switched it on until I just went live. So last minute panic of bits and pieces, but do let me know in the chat that you can hear me okay. Yes, you can, says Ken, because he's already talking along with me. That's great. I don't feel very comfortable right now. I'm just going to jiggle things about a little bit. What am I doing with that? I mean, what am I doing with that is my question. Well, because of this. But I can't move that because of that. Oh, I see. I've made some changes and that's just made everything go skew whiff. Because I've got a bit... I could put that a little bit... Hang on. If I put that there... Well, this is good. This is a great start. All right, I'm off. Okay, now that makes me a little bit more... I can cross my legs and I can sit here a little bit more nonchalantly and talk to the internet in a more relaxed fashion than I was. Is that level good? That level looks good. Okay, good evening. I'm going to be looking down a little bit because my surface with my the chat is just down. It's just down here. Okay, so I'm not staring at a computer. I'm staring at a proper camera, which is nice. So good evening, Ken. Good to see you as always. Corey, great. Jeff, hello to you too. Bastian, Andrew, hey, how you doing? Good to see you, fella. Village Green Sound System. Happy Bank Spring Holiday Eve to you too, sir. Hello, Persundle, and other people at the top who I haven't quite gotten to. Jay, over in Twitch land, well done. Holding it down. Good lads, well done, well done. Good to see. I had the pleasure of speaking to the Galaxy Electric at Superbooth, who were talking about their twitching and how exciting that was, and how they've got a little community that's been raging over there with sort of tape-based people and weirdos and that kind of thing, which sounds really exciting. And kind of their advice was to ask them, how do you actually get people to look at you on Twitch? Because it just seems to be a completely different world. And I think the answer to that question is consistency and exclusivity as much as anything. You've got to do it on there. You've got to do it on there and interact on there. So, I mean, I've tried that a couple of times in the past, thinking about, hey, let's just do the Twitch thing. And I haven't been brave enough to keep it going. So it's something to think about, certainly for the future, to give that another go and to do it properly. Whereas here, everything really is focused on YouTube, even though I'm going out to Facebook, to Twitter, possibly, and Twitch too. But hey, it's good to have anybody on board from wherever you are. If you're new, you're very, very welcome. This evening what happens is that we talk about some synths and stuff. We might play some music. We might have a fiddle with some things. Generally have conversation, talk about issues of the day, things that we're excited about or interested in. Any questions that you have, anything like that. It's just chit-chat. It's a bit of nonsense. I'll probably be rude to people in a gentle, nice, friendly sort of way. If you ask me something... slightly funny, I will probably respond in kind, I suppose. I am completely knackered, sadly, but for a good reason. I was out at a friend's wedding anniversary party last night over in Cheltenham, which is about a 4-hour drive away, and so we're over there boozing, and then stayed over and then drove back today, and yeah, I'm just a bit knackered. Hi, Drodge, Tonal, making sound machines. Good to see you. Aww. That's nice. I'd like to be doing a bit of that. Assembling some modules in the sun. That's a nice idea. I've always got filming to think about. It's a lovely thing to be able to do. But it does sometimes put a damper on things. You've got to think about the cameras. You've got to think about having your lights and having a space and all those sorts of things. and it would be nice just to sit down and do a bit of soldering without having to think about that. And of course I can. I have license to do that any time. The thing is that nice people, lovely people send me kits and would really like me to make them on video so that other people can experience that, and it's useful for them. And of course I endeavour to do that, but it does have a flip side to it, which is that everything is a little bit of a faff. So I think, hi Philip, hi Jeff, I think yeah, I think, oh nice, I think I should pour myself a drink before we do anything else. So I guess this is our post-Superbooth chat. We haven't chatted since then, I don't think, have we? Gosh, I mean, that was only a couple of weeks ago. Think about it. Now, I'm kind of feeling a little bit more cautious than normal because I have this bloody great big mixer sitting here. And it's an expensive mixer, and I don't want to pour beer all over it, particularly. But of course I won't. I mean, I don't generally do that. But maybe I'll just keep this a little bit further away than I normally do. The sound of beer being poured. Gosh. So this evening's tipple is Beavertown Lunar Haze, which is something is very, very drinkable. It's not going to go well. Oh, by golly, that's better. So Philip asked if I've had a chance to play on any of the tip-top modules. No, I haven't. I've heard nothing about the, if you're talking about the new art stuff, no, not had a whisper about any of that. I've never had a relationship with tip-top as such. I don't even think I have any. Does anybody know if I have any of their modules? I don't think that I do I? What else do they do? I mean, it's mostly those effects modules that if I would have something, I would have one of those, or potentially their sort of creamy filter. They've got like a spacey filter thing, yeah, or a Z5000, something of that nature, or Z-Verb. Those are things I've been interested in the past. I don't have any of the Buchla stuff. I kind of feel that if I wanted to build a Buchla system, then I think I would kind of keep that separately rather than just have bits and pieces of that in my Eurorack. I just feel that a Buchla system would work best, in itself, as opposed to being mixed in with other things. But that's a very narrow-minded view, of course. But that's how I'm looking at it just at the moment. So I haven't got any of those Buchla ones, and I haven't looked at any of the art stuff. Because I don't know how available that is, actually. Does anybody know if they're selling that stuff yet? Yeah, I mean, the Buchla stuff is excellent. That's something I would like to do. I don't have the time or the space to look at a particular system like that. Maybe in the future that might be fun, particularly as it's not all out yet. Thanks, Solid. Oh, you meant the Buchla stuff, right? Yeah. No. As I say, I haven't tried any of that. It's a nice idea. I mean, in some ways, I shy away from Buchla because it's yet another language to learn. I feel that it's like a whole world that I haven't inhabited, so I don't really speak the language particularly well. And of course, I'm up for learning things and learning new things, but I haven't done as yet. I haven't looked into that as at the moment, but I may do. I mean, I would love to get my hands on a music easel at some point. I think those are potentially beautiful machines. Strange, and it's the strangeness about it that I find quite appealing. I think I could spend some time exploring what that's about. And I like the idea that that would focus me in. I mean, see, that's the thing about having, if I get like a Buchla module and stick that in everything else, it would just be mixed and jumbled in with lots of other stuff, and I inevitably drop back to making the same sort of crap all the time. And so I don't know that it would be a particularly exciting diversion, whereas to get a more complete Buchla system, I think would force you into a more interesting adventure. I think that's my thinking on it at the moment, and I'm going with that. You missed a beer of choice. It's Beavertown Haze stuff. This stuff, you can tell by its cloudiness. Oh yeah, no, Jeff, I don't worry about the money side of it. I just fully expect someone to send me one. Yeah, right, yeah. But, you know, anything could happen. Stranger things have happened, you know. I had no expectation that SSL would get in touch to say, hey, do you want to try out a Dirty Great Big Mixer? Out of the blue, that was. Kinda. I mean, I have just got... I'll show you. Yeah. I asked if I could borrow one of these a fair while ago. I have not got around to getting it out of the box until I did my Surface video like last week. It's been in a box for 4 months. I just haven't had the time to think about it, because I want this ultimately, or I'm looking for this to replace the audio fuse which I have over there, because I've kind of reached the end of my wick with the audio fuse. I mean, a brilliant audio interface though it undoubtedly is, it's also never really worked right, and I'm kind of fed up with its lack of working right. The fact that I have to cycle it through its digital inputs every time I turn it on in order to get rid of the crackle, and that its sample rate doesn't always stick, or Windows doesn't even see it sometimes. It's like, oh, it's time to move on. I'd quite like to have something a little bit different, something that's got a bit of colour to it, and it was either going to be one of those Volt UA Volt interfaces, or I quite like the idea of the SSL, because SSL is such a brand name. It's quite amazing. I love the form factor. You know, this takes me back to the Steinberg UR28 that I had, which was brilliant. UR28M, I think it was. That was brilliant for a long... Oh, no. When I say it was brilliant, it was initially rubbish. It was initially scarily, stupidly awful. The latency figures on it were just bonkers. But then they sorted that out, and then it got to be a really nice smooth interface until it then, I think it stopped working or something. And so I went to the audio fuse, which was, as I say, brilliant, but flawed in a number of places that I've never been able to resolve. So it also gets really hot, and it's also not placed very well on my desk. So this is also inspiring me to reorganize my desk. So what I'm saying is I was talking to SSL. I've bought this off them. They haven't sent it to me for nothing, sadly. But hey, they gave me a deal. What can I say? And I'm interested in trying it out and wondering whether these 4K buttons do anything. I don't know. Whether that makes any difference, whether it's going to improve the sound quality of stuff. But it's just about... I mean, no one quite makes the ideal audio interface for me. I always have a slightly strange requirements, but this has got 4 inputs that I can use properly for blah 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 inputs. I only need 1 pair of outputs. It has 2, that's fine. MIDI is always useful, and it has an ADAT in, so I could do multi-track recording in through it as well if I can be bothered. It should, through the onboard mixer software, do a little bit of internal loop backing and things like that to enable me to live stream stuff within my system, which is something I've struggled to do because the audio fuse doesn't have that facility, and it just makes it all a bit of a faff. Whereas that should sort that out if I can get my head around their software mixer, which is complicated. It's like RME complicated, and that does not thrill me particularly, but you know, I'm up for it. But I haven't plugged this in yet, other than I did a bit of a demo on the Surface, which was cool. But I haven't put this on my main machine yet. But I plan to sometime this week. It's all part of my slow tidy. That place is looking incredibly tidy at the moment. It's extraordinary. Which, yeah, and the fact that it is still a mess, but looking more tidy than normal is interesting in itself, I suppose. Anyway, what was I saying? Anyway, so yeah, so I have been talking to SSL, but then they said, hey, do you fancy trying out this mixer? To which I said, no, not really. I'm not a mixer kind of guy. And they went, oh, go on, we think it would be quite good. And so I went, oh, all right then. If I must. But, excuse me, just take my jumper off. So it's got warm. So I said, like, right, I said, all right, let's give, oh, that knob's sitting a bit proud. Is that supposed to be up there? I'll give it a go. That's supposed to be down a bit. Curious. So the idea is the Big Six. Yeah, that's right. That's what it's called. In fact, I've got I could do this. Can I do that? Woo! There you go. I got an overhead. It's an extraordinarily large mixer for something which only has kind of 4 channels here, and then a bunch of stereo channels over here. It's you know, luxurious and generous in its layout, which also means it takes up a bloody load of room, doesn't it? So what was I saying? So yeah, so I'm coming at it from so essentially they said that they think it's a really good mixer for synths, and they'd love someone like myself to sort of find my way into that. You know, could I have a look at that for someone who's not using a mixer currently? Could I, would I mind spending a bit of time looking at how I can use this in my setup, and whether that's good or whether that's bad, whether it works or not. So actually they're kind of risking it, rather. They're taking a punt on someone like me, because I'm a little bit kind of cynical about it. As in, I've often said, nah, you don't need a bloody great big mixer, they just get in the way. What do I need all this stuff for, all this paraphernalia at the top? You know, is that really interesting? But the other interesting thing is that since posting a picture of this on Instagram, lots of people have said, oh yeah, that's brilliant, I've got one, it completely changed the way I approach all sorts of things, or you know, it's really sorted out my workflow with using synths, or it's really done this and done that, and that's really interesting, you know. So evidently a lot of people use a proper console mixer for this sort of thing, because I mean, the reality of it is I've got a bunch of synths behind me that I don't really ever play because they're not really plugged in. Difficult to plug them in. I've got to, I mean, I tend to use them one at a time and then plug them into the audio fuse, so I've got a throughput on that. But I've never had a mixer as such to allow me to run lots of them at once. I mean, I do have a little mixer. In fact, I've got, this is identical, right? This is a mixer with identical features. I wonder if you can tell the difference. Let me put this in here. There you go. This is my usual mixer that I use if ever I need to mix anything. It's a Sub-Zero. Fantastic sort of Chinese knockoff from Gear for Music. They are the same. You can see how they're the same, can't you? Yes. Same number of channels, I think, more or less. So yeah, so I'm going to give that a go. I mean, it's like, I mean, I don't have any bleeding time for anything. But I tried to prioritize stuff that just feels interesting, and this does feel quite interesting. I don't know what super analog means, because these are all super analog inputs. I mean, they're not analog inputs, they're super analog inputs. You know, I'm going to take the piss out of that. So, yeah, I mean, if you want my first impressions, good Lord, it's huge. Second, all the connections around the back. I can't bloody get to anything. This was the second one. Third one, core blimey, it's huge. I mean, that's kind of where I am with it at the moment. I do have the Euro running through it. So there, yeah, I know how to use it. I push the fader up, I push the fader down, push the fader up, push the fader down, push the fader up, push the fader down, push the fader up, press the EQ button, it's high, mid, low, turn it off. Don't know what all this Q stuff does. I've got STQ1, STQ2. I have no idea what that's supposed to mean. But there's also a built-in compressor, which I think is on the first 4 channels, the sort of the mic channels. I don't know. Oh no, bunch of buttons over here. Why don't I ever get anything on this? I don't know. I've never really understood the difference between the main outs and monitor outs. Yeah, there's lots of things are missing out of my knowledge of how to use mixers because I didn't really pay that much attention to them. I mean, I've used them a lot over the years, but I don't really do much with it. Built-in effects, I say only compression, I think. But it does have, what does it have? Does it have any sends? You know, I don't really know the first thing about it as yet. I've got some... no, I don't know. Does it have sends? It has inserts, I think. I think it does. There's lots to be discovered, and you're probably thinking, why is this idiot gets the opportunity to use something like this? There's inserts on the super analog 4 inputs, not on the stereo ones. But you know, I'll throw in a microcosm or something. I'll wire that into it. But then, as I say, I've got no sends, and what's the point of that? Don't know. Maybe that's another con. No sends, but it has external inputs. What does that mean? Aren't all inputs external? Oh no! You see, it's the language used by mixers and mixer companies. I'm going to trip up all over it and not have a clue what I'm talking about. But maybe that's what's important. Maybe not having a clue is the right way into this kind of thing. So I can point out, because that's my favourite thing, is obviously to point out all the stuff which gatekeepers like to use to keep us idiots away from all the proper gear, you know. Has 2 stereo pre and post sends per channel, does it? Well, it's not very evident, I have to say. Unless that's what STQ is. Because, you know, I like to see a send knob. That's always good. You've got pan. What's that? Oh no, that's ST. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Do. Bell. No. Insert. Large DAR. I mean, the other nice thing about it is that you can USB it to your computer, and you've got all 12 channels going in and out gloriously, which is great. I can see that being useful if I wanted to multi-track. Don't know that I do, and that's kind of what I got the other SSL for. But no, that's not really. That's only 4 channels, which is what. Well, unless I'm using the ADAT. See, I don't know. But on a whim, I've got this bloody great big thing sitting here now, so I'm going to try my best to make use of it. It's going to encourage me to use my synths, and we'll see where we go. Deceptively complex, as Ian. Yes, I know. I mean, that's why I don't look for having them in my life. I kind of like Eurorack mixers because they tend to be simple. In fact, yeah, okay, so there's a product from Superbooth, the new WMD, the return of WMD in the performance mixer. I thought they've really overdone it. I thought the new version of the performance mixer is like, oh, you've just peppered it with patch sockets. You've made it massively more complicated. Whereas I think you hit a real sweet spot with the original one, and I would have stuck with that. You know, all these extra sockets means that the channels have had to shift, and you've had to sort of like put channels on a slightly skew. It's like, no. that's you sort of become victim of trying to squeeze a whole bunch of features in that people think they want, and in doing so, kind of mess with the good thing you had going with the product in the first place. At least that's my view of it. Yeah, the fader. Look at that. And all that yawning distance. The resolution of moving through volume I've got because of the enormous throw of this fader. It's still going. And then down. It's not automated. It's no clickety-clackety stuff. Got to do it by hand, like the old days. Yeah, I quite like the Cosmotronic mixers. The mixer I use most is the Mixer BX from Feedback Modules, which I've got in my Arturia case over there, which is great. It's a super mixer. 6 channels. No messing about. It is on knobs though, not on sliders. I mean, a lot of people also use the Befacco one, which also looks great, but it just takes up a lot of room. I mean, that's kind of, if you can bring the mixing side out of the Euro rack, that's going to save you a whole load of space. But it depends on what you're doing. I mean, I tend to make stuff just in the rack. So bringing in other synths is something that's a little bit alien to me. But, you know, I'm game for it. Maybe it'll encourage me to do it. Not sure where it's going to end up. It can't sit there. I mean, it can. It looks lovely. I guess it will end up on my sort of A-frame over here. Seems to be the sensible place to put it, next to all the synths. Then I'm wondering, do I have enough cables to actually cable more than one synth up at a time? Then how am I going to sequence the synths? These questions, you know, it's a snowball effect, isn't it? As soon as you get one piece of decent gear, that's it. You've got to get that, and then you've got to get a thing, and then you've got to get one of those. Oh my goodness. I fell out of love with my Tex Mix. The Tex Mix was the first mixer that I had, and I thought that was a brilliant idea. It was just not reliable. I couldn't, you know, I've got channels on it that don't work. I had this horrible high-pitched noise going through it. I sent bits back. He sent more ones out, and I still sort of had the same problem. I ended up just not being able to really trust what I was hearing. And it's a shame because it's a great idea. I really like the system and the fact that I could swap and change between line level and Euro rack level with little modules and put those in. I was thoroughly into it, but you know, I've kind of got it. I've got it in another case over there, and I just haven't really used it. I've had to move away from it, sadly, because it's just not working out for me. I understand that it works out for other people, and that's great because it is. I'm not trying to say that it's all rubbish and broken. It just did not work for me, and it's been a thing of disappointment, sadly. But yeah, look, long fader. Did I tell you there's, look at that. So you think that's loud, but I can make it different loudness. See, try that. Try somewhere in between, then in between that and doing that. You know, I mean, the whole throw of this fader is taller than an entire Eurorack module. yeah, so there you go. That's the Big Six. I hope you enjoyed that review. Please use my affiliate link below. Oh, that's so good. So where are we otherwise? What else have we been talking about? Well, I mean, this week I did my video on the Surface, which was fascinating. I discovered a whole new load of Intel technology had emerged that I had no idea about, that I had in my hands and I had no idea about. I mean, it's remarkable. It's been 3 years, 4 years since I built a computer for anyone, and it's amazing how you just have to let that go. You know, I no longer keep up on news groups about technology or Intel. I no longer read news about Intel or AMD or Microsoft, really, for that matter. It's no longer that central fascination that it once was. It's quite interesting that when you come back to something like the Surface that I'm testing, and you suddenly have weirdness going on, and you find out that there's a whole different sort of processor architecture going on. It's very interesting. Well, no, I mean, it is and it isn't. It's interesting for people who are into that sort of thing. I'm actually quite happy that I no longer have to hold those sorts of things in my head, that I'm no longer having to explain bus speeds to people and memory speeds and DBC latency calls and how that works with running through, you know, the SM bus and hyperthreading and multiple cores versus single cores, all of that malarkey. I mean, it was never very interesting, but we made it our thing that we talked about and we decided to be experts upon. And I don't really miss it at all. I mean, it was not, I mean, I do feel, I mean, it was nice feeling that I was a genuine expert on something that had been born out of a couple of decades of hard won experience. You know, that was cool. But it's amazing how quickly it sort of leaves you when you're not in that world. And now I'm in a sort of a slightly different world, or a sideways world, or a combined world, a larger world of it, in which I can not claim to be an expert on anything. It's very, very different. I used to enjoy, there was a certain part of me that enjoyed those conversations online when someone would say something in full confidence, thinking they knew something about computer performance and tweaking Windows, that kind of thing, and just being able to close them down and destroy them with facts and experience. That was quite good fun at times, but I can't do that anymore, so I don't know the first thing about it. So in my wonderful Surface Pro 9 video, I'm there tweaking away, trying to turn off turbo, and it doesn't work. It no longer works, all that business, and I'm getting strange results while it all working relatively well in strange frequency bands of processors and testing. And then at the end of all of that, after I've uploaded my huge 5-hour video on the thing, I get a copyright strike because someone apparently has registered that 8-bar door bench loop as theirs, and so I get a monetization zap where some other guy is going to get all the money from that video because they reckon that 8-bar loop, which has been in door bench for 20 years, they reckon it's theirs. I mean, I spoke to Vin at Doorbench about it, and he went, "What?" And he says he got the tracks off a sample CD that he bought in like 1996. And I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to copyright stuff that's on a sample CD, because otherwise that messes with everybody. So it's a bit of a weird one. I have poked back saying I don't think this is quite right, but it's to dispute a copyright claim in YouTube is actually quite difficult. And the wording is very much like, if you created this yourself, then that's fine. Say, I created this myself. I've just written it. It's completely new and not like anything else. That's the good response. Or that you own the license to it. And none of those things are actually true in this case. What is true is that the person claiming copyright on this should not be claiming copyright on it. But that's not the sort of thing that you can put in to the YouTube dispute system. And they also put up lots of warnings about how they can terminate your account and all sorts if you make fraudulent claims. It's like, well, this is all a bit odd. It's all working in the favour of the person who reckons they're claiming your copyright. So I could probably do it with a pen from a distance. I've got a pen here. So you can use a pen to put lots of faders up at once. That's an old trick I learned from a drunken old cokehead at a studio back in the old days. Yeah, it's just a loop. It's just an 8-bar loop. If you go and watch the video or any of my performance videos, they've got this door bench project all over it. It's just the same thing going round. And so next time I do any of those, I'm going to make my own loop, for heaven's sake. It's just crazy. But anyway, who knows? They might back down, but I get the feeling that this is a company that just goes around copywriting stuff that they don't own. They just do it and see if they can get away with it. That's my feeling. You got a new bus machine? Cool, crikey, you're a bit Mac, aren't you? What was your view on the guy called Gerald using those 2 laptops? That's a bit of an out there question, Nicholas. I thought he was flipping amazing. I'd never seen anything quite like it. It was unexpected and a little bit, it was a disruption is what it was. If nobody knows what we're talking about, at Synth Fest a couple of years ago, I was on stage with a guy called Gerald, who's a guy from back in the 90s, early days of dance music, part of 808 State, I think it was, but created lots of seminal tracks using all sorts of stuff, all sorts of synths and MPCs and all that sort of thing. And so he was along, had a bit of a chat about what he does now. He still does a similar sort of thing, making parties and grooves and tunes and beats. And he did a bit of a set, and his set consists of 2 laptops running Reason. I almost said Rebirth then. It could have almost been. Was it Reason? Yeah, it was. It was definitely, yeah, it was Reason. And the funny thing about it is they weren't synced. They weren't MIDI to each other or anything. They were both running, and he would tap in a tempo or change the tempo up and down a little bit as he felt was right, and he would mix between one and the other. Fascinating. I thought that was totally brilliant. Yeah. He was using it just like it was hardware, is the idea. He didn't care the fact that it was computer generated sound. It sounded good enough to him, and that's what he used, and it was convenient. It's particularly to travel to a gig rather than taking a load of hardware with him. Yeah, I thought that was great. Nothing but respect for the guy. So there you go. So yeah, so that was the Surface video. Any questions about that, feel free to ask. I kind of feel that I might have a further video on it. If I can sort of find the time and the enthusiasm, I'll look into the whole core thing a little bit deeper, because there seems to be this thing now called performance cores and efficient cores. Efficient cores are kind of lower powered cores, physically smaller, that deal with like the background tasks, and then you've got a couple of cores which are the performance cores. So the way I guess I'm looking at it is that the performance cores are the cores you normally would have had in any computer, and they've put in a bunch of sort of smaller, lower powered cores to run all the crappy stuff so that the performance cores can focus on doing the performance stuff. Sounds like a sound idea. I mean, Intel are forever trying to fill in those holes with all the hyper threading and this, that and the other. They're trying to plug all of the gaps, and this is one way of doing that. The question for us in our situation is whether the moving between chords and the shuffling of stuff around that inevitably does, whether that ultimately causes the DPC latency to go up and we end up getting glitches. Difficult to say. It depends on how efficient all of that is. Because again, once again, we're in this individual niche, this unique niche where we need real-time, low-latency audio, and it cannot be interrupted. Otherwise, it causes a glitch, and that messes our whole thing up. There's no other application which requires this sort of thing. Everything else can handle a brief pause. You know, whether you're video editing, whether you're creating Photoshop stuff, web editing, programming, rendering, making games, even playing games. None of it matters if there's a slight glitch. It doesn't. If there's a pause, it doesn't matter. It only matters in music production. So it's not the sort of thing that they're likely designing for, is what I'm trying to say. So whether it works or not is something that you just have to test for. Now, thankfully, it does kind of work, which is great. So we can just kind of get on with our lives. So the question is, so do I want to spend a load of time trying to see if I can identify exactly what's going on inside the Surface Pro 9 and then do something about that or improve upon it when it's actually kind of working? I don't know that I do. I mean, if the whole thing was a glitch fest, then yes, perhaps that would be a good use of my time. But it's not. It's just kind of working, isn't it? So in that respect, I'm kind of inclined to leave it. But I am going to be doing some work on this soon because I have this wonderful plan, right? Which I can tell you about, I suppose. Is this spoilers? Oh, does anyone care? I don't know. I want to do some more of my tape machine, which is up here. Let me say, bend it up. There we go. That's the fella. So I've been thinking a lot about that. What else can I do? Record to it. Obviously, I mean, I could, and then turn that on, and that would be quite exciting. Or what I could do that, right? And then make a tape loop out of that and have that going around continuously, just going up and down. You know, that would be great. So I could do a bit of that. But what I was thinking of doing was sort of remastering an old album of mine. So I've got this old ambient album under Molten Meditation, it's kind of represents the pinnacle of my computer-based music output. Because I spent, I took a year out of work and focused on making my first album, and I did that, and extremely proud of it. And I did like 3 or 4 others afterwards, and then I pulled instrumental versions out of that because all of the original albums have biblical meditations running through them, bits of scripture. Man, I was really trying to turn souls into molten lead was the idea. No, really, I'm a very spiritual guy, don't you know? But it's not for everybody. So I thought I would make an instrumental only version, and so pulled out my favourite tracks from all of the meditations that I'd done and did slightly shorter so I could fit more on. I did an album called Without Words, which I thought was just, I mean, I'm quite brilliant. And it was great, and it's a really nice piece of work. I'm very, very pleased with it, and it's good, you know. And it's been around like a decade now or something. It's just doing its own thing, and that's fine. And I've now moved into hardware, but I've never put down an album's worth of stuff yet. I haven't quite found the time to do that. And it's very difficult on hardware because you kind of have to conjure it up and then do it, and then conjure up another one and then do it. Whereas on software, obviously, you can take all the time in the world. What am I saying? So anyway, so I got this old album. It's on Spotify, blah, blah, blah. And I found my oldest kid was playing it, and he was using it to help him revise. So he had it playing in the background while he was revising for his GCSEs, which I just... not broke my heart. What's the opposite to breaking your heart? Squeezed. and tugged on my heart. And I thought that was amazing. And so I've spent a little bit of time listening back to it, inspired to do so. And it's just a lovely piece of work. And so what I thought I would do is I would make a tape version of it. So a reel-to-reel tape version. So I thought it'd be interesting to record that whole album onto a reel-to-reel and then record it back. Because, I mean, one of the problems with these sort of self-released albums, as these were, is that you don't really get them properly mastered. I mean, I say that. I mean, the first one I did actually get properly mastered, and I wasn't that impressed with the result. I mean, when I got it back, one of them was a bit distorted, and it's because it was the first time I got something mastered, I absolutely assumed that there would be this night and day difference between what I had submitted, which is like the best that I could possibly do. I was expecting it to come back just fatter and spacier and dramatically awesome in comparison. And it kind of was just a little bit louder. And as I say, one of them was a little bit distorted in places. And it felt like, well, yeah, I mean, I paid a guy a couple of £100 to do this. A supposedly professional output. Somebody's shouting in the chat. Sorry, I'll pay attention in a minute. What was I saying? Yeah. So so ultimately with albums after that, I'd end up just using Ozone or the Studio One thing and try to master them myself, and they seem to be okay. But they were always essentially just a little bit quiet. Never quite reached the levels they could have done had someone professional sorted that out, perhaps. So what I'm saying is, I think it would be interesting to run that out, to track that out to the tape deck, and then get that recorded back into the computer. That's the reason why I got the SSL things. I quite like to use that 4K input. Is that going to make a difference? I really don't know. Or perhaps I could run it through the desk like that, and use the compressor, perhaps. Would that be good? I don't know. So anyway, so I think it would make for an interesting video and an interesting process to record it onto tape and then record it back onto the computer and sort of re-release it as a remix, as a taped version, because it will have all the warble and crap from that tape machine, and I think that could really add to the sound generally, particularly if I'm able to record it back in a bit hotter and through the high quality inputs on the SSL. There could be a lot of good going on there. That could be awesome. And then potentially look into the idea of getting, I don't know, a dozen reel-to-reels of it made and put those out as something that people could buy, or produce a run of cassettes. Maybe that would be interesting. I don't know. It just seems like an interesting idea. And I'm kind of half and half in that space where I could just do it because I like to just do things sometimes, or I could actually research it and phone some people up and find out the best way to do it. I mean, that's really that's the Ben Jordan way of doing things, but I just don't know if I can be bothered. The problem with doing things properly is that I don't really have the time to do things properly, and all it really means is that I end up probably not doing it. And that's like, I'd rather do something half-heartedly. Because people, there's that saying, well, if it's not worth doing properly, it's not worth doing at all, which is rubbish. Absolutely not. No. If you can do something even a little bit, do it. Oh, it's worth doing it, definitely. Because no one, you're never going to match your own expectations of something, and people have different expectations of what it is that you're doing. So you might do something which to yourself is not that great, not that well thought out, but for somebody else might be awesome. So you must never forget that, I think. So you shouldn't be afraid of releasing something just because it's not fully formed. That's my belief anyway. That's what my whole YouTube channel is based upon. Releasing stuff that's not fully formed. I mean, my whole Surface video that I did is, you know, I ran into all these weird, strange things I didn't quite understand. And rather than stopping and researching it and doing it properly, I thought, no, it's not it. Let's just keep going. Let's crash on through. And I think at the end it will be useful at least. And so that's what I did. And I think it is. I think it's useful still. Because essentially it shows that, yes, it can work. And that's the most important thing. So, sorry, somebody was shouting something. What was going on with that guy in sunglasses? Let me just check. Everyone's being nice to each other. Interesting to see how the CPU reacted. Yeah, it was. E-cores are sort of netbook class cores. Oh, okay. Is that helpful? You can always turn off the E-cores in the BIOS. Yeah, right. Have you ever seen the BIOS on a Surface? Yeah, no. I mean, I get lots of advice like this, and it's lovely. I mean, I'm always grateful for advice, but this is one of those situations where people make a lot of assumptions about stuff. I mean, I had another comment on YouTube that there's this thing called Thread Director, which you can use to turn off the cores, but they didn't provide a link to anything, and everything that I've Googled about it just takes me to the fact that it's a technology that Intel have built in to their 12th generation processors, which enables the whole efficient and performance core thing to work. So it's a technology as opposed to an app that I can use to turn anything on and off with. So people make these statements like, oh yeah, just use this and that'll sort it out. And it never works. I mean, TuneCore, is it TuneCore? Thread Stopper? Thread Ripper? Oh, I don't remember. There's this piece of software that everyone says, oh, you should use that for tweaking the Surface. It has never worked. No selection of settings in that thing have ever done diddly squat for it. The one thing that did work was the XTU, the Extreme Tuning Utility from Intel. That was brilliant up until, I think, the Surface Pro 6. Then after that, they killed it. Not the software, they killed the Surface support for it. So if you try to run the software, it says, oh, I'm sorry, this platform isn't supported. And you go, what now? Hey, what now? And it's a real shame because they had some brilliant performance graphs, which is all I used it for. I didn't actually use it for tweaking because you don't really want to do too much on the Surface because ultimately it's trying to follow a thermal profile and you need to stay quite close to that. And, you know, overclocking, no, it's not something you want to be doing really. But using the graphs was very, very useful. Very, very useful. But sadly, no, you can't even install that on a Surface. It won't let you run it at all. So, excuse me. So what I'm saying is on the Surface, there is no real BIOS to talk of. There's a tiny bit, like you can turn Bluetooth on and off. That's about it. But that's about as far as it gets. So you have to work with what you've got. And I mean, the other thing that I'm very keen about, I mean, I've done plenty of tuning and overclocking in my time, but that's not, I don't think that's a viable way forward. You know, you're trying to make things easy for people, and getting people into the BIOS and changing settings and going into scary places is not making things easier for people. That's why I really love the whole 100% and 99% switch which you had in the power settings, because it was such a gloriously simple way to turn off the turbo boost and just make everything work. And it worked every time. It's been working for a decade, that switch, and then that suddenly doesn't. How annoying is that? So yeah, I'm having to resort to a bit of PowerShell terminal work, which is not great, not ideal either, but at least all you got to do is open it and copy and paste something in, so it's not so traumatic. Yeah, so that's the Surface thing. Anyway, somebody was saying something I missed. Oh, they've gone away, I think now. Was it down here? Hang on. YouTube is video editing, says Vanilla. Okay, maybe it's not something interesting. Something about air conditioning. Okay. Yeah, I don't think, Ian, I don't think anybody has a Dolby Atmos surround system in order to play it. I think more people actually have a reel-to-reel machine. I don't know where anything's going with that whole surround sound business. I mean, we've had super CDs, super audio CDs for years. I mean, I remember back in, back when I had my flat in London, I bought a surround sound system, a Yamaha one. I've still got it. I've still got it. There's still bits of it in the house, even though it's not functional. But that was great. But this was like the early noughties, and I had this surround sound system, and I had a few super CDs and DVDs and bits and pieces, and it was great. Great for watching movies as long as you sat in the right spot. I liked it a lot, and I thought, yeah, it'd be great to mix in 5.1 because it's, you know, that's the cutting edge. That's what everyone's going to be doing, and here we are 20 years later, and it's still, we're still going stereo down to MP3. Ultimately, that's about it. Are you going to see us play some more Cool Live sets sometime this year? Yes, absolutely, absolutely, yes. I will be doing some more live sets. I'm not set up for it just at the minute. I mean, sadly, since Synth East, I haven't had the opportunity to go to an EMOM or a Synth Club night. It just hasn't happened for me. And I don't have a live rig set up at the moment because I've got a bunch of modules I need to kind of review and think about and sit down with. And so that's getting in the way at the moment. But I do absolutely want to perform again. I'll certainly be performing next year at Synth East and other things perhaps, but I don't have anything planned for this year. But I'm absolutely open to offers, and the ultimately the driving force behind everything that I do is that desire to want to make some music. That is it. That's the whole reason that we're here. So I'm always looking to be doing that, working towards doing that. But I mean, also at the moment I've got a gig in 4 weeks, a village gig at the Village Fete, right, called the Revels, which is fantastic, where I'm playing a live gig there, but not on any of this stuff. This is what we're doing. I'll show you. It's all a bit guitar-y. Can you see that all right? No, probably not. It doesn't really matter. Anyway. So, good, isn't it? So let's get it right. It's getting late. Have you seen my mates? Tell me when the boys get here. 7 o'clock and I wanna rock. Gonna get a belly full of beer. That kind of thing, see? So, myself in my little band called Beck and the Beards, we are playing a gig in the village where we're playing a bunch of covers. So that's going to be fun. So if you're in the neighbourhood, you can drop by. But ultimately, I'll be doing some electronic stuff as well soon. A big building desire in here to do some of that. I need the rest of my life to sort of go away for a couple of weeks so I could just really focus in, get a load of stuff done, load of things finished that I feel are outstanding, so that I can free my mind up a little bit to get to actually producing a bit more music. In some ways, that's kind of why I want to do this album remaster, because it feels like it's sort of a cheating way to feel like I've achieved something creatively. Do you know what I mean? It's like a shortcut to doing a bit of that, or it's procrastination. You know, which one is it? It's really, really, really hard to say. What must be a dream come true? Andrew, sorry, I'm looking at comments from a little while ago now. Oh no, Blue Naughtiness, absolutely. My music was designed to send people to sleep. I mean, the first review I got of the album was a guy who said he hates it because it nearly made him crash his car, because He almost fell asleep listening to it on his way home from work, which is exactly what I was going for. It is absolutely, it was, deeply meditative stuff. I mean, I would use it in a live meditation situation. So I wouldn't. I sort of, over the course that I did all these albums, I did this festival called Greenbelt where I brought the music and did workshops on it. I think you could probably call them. So people came along and I played the music and I narrated the verses over the top and absolutely invited people to sleep if that's what they needed, Otherwise, they were all just chilled out on the floor, being really, really relaxed. And it was great. It was a fantastic time. And over the years that I did it, it got more and more live. So like the next year I brought the guitar and did the guitar parts separately. And then another year I was kind of triggering loops more rather than just playing the whole thing back. Because the first year I just had it playing back off a laptop with a couple of lights. That was it. So it definitely evolved over time, which was interesting. I'd very much like to do that again, but I've had a bit of a break from doing Greenbelt, and now nobody has a clue who I am, which is a shame because I got some good write-ups in proper magazines and stuff who people reviewing the festival. I always seem to do. I felt I contributed something interesting, and I'd really like the opportunity to do that, but with proper live gear. I think that would be interesting. I will endeavour to try to get to speak to the right person at some point. If you're out there and you work for Greenbelt and you know what I'm talking about, then I am absolutely up for running a whole tent's worth of electronic music or ambient meditations or molten meditations or alternative worship, interesting, interactive sound, music and light filled extravaganzas. That's my bag, man. I could totally do that. That'd be great. Oh, stick me on main stage as well. I mean, I'd appreciate that also. Saturday night? Anyway. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not caught up at all. Ba, ba, ba. You got a Surface Pro 3. Oh, nice. I've let most of my previous services go now. In fact, I sold my Surface Pro 8, which was a bit weird, but I had a bit of a terrible tax bill, and I really needed to generate some cash. So that was very helpful in that regard. What were we talking about? Yeah. So at the moment, I've got my 9. My wife uses the 2017, I think. I use a Surface Pro 6 for stuff in the house, which is running on its last legs now. It really struggles. Since it upgraded itself to Windows 11, it really struggles with itself. And I've got the Surface Pro 7 put to one side, which is going to be Nancy's work computer, because she's going to high school after the summer and they have to have a computer. I mean, my boys who have both, well, I've got one going out the other side and the other one halfway through, they've got old desktops of mine, all hand-me-down desktop computers, which is great, and they're getting a whole lot of use out of them, and they don't seem to complain about it too much, which is I'm grateful for. But I don't have another one, so I've kept, as I say, I've kept a Surface aside for Nancy, and hopefully she can use that to do her work on. Yeah, anyway, by the by, no, I don't know what a Tascam Model 12 is, Callie. I've got an Akai 4000DS. So Vanelia, my comment was too long. Idea, flashbulb for noise, fan, air conditioning, dehumidifier to add white, pink, crushed blue noise. Go for it. Go for it. I mean, noise generation doesn't seem to be too hard. There's lots of modules that can do that for you. But sure, yeah, use a thing. MIDI news. Okay. Roland surround sound. Okay. What do I think of the Push 3? There's a question. I don't know. I've never been into Push particularly. It looked like an overcomplicated launchpad, and I quite liked launchpad. Ableton Live launchpad, that always worked for me. You know, it was simple. You know what you knew what was going on. You press a thing, it launched a thing. Push seemed to be like putting a whole load of stuff in front of the interface I was trying to use, rather than being an improvement over the interface. But I mean, a lot of people love it, absolutely. A lot of people really like it. And I can see how you could, but I'd really much rather use a keyboard and a launchpad, or a keyboard and a mouse. Ultimately, if I'm working on Ableton Live, I just want to work in the DAW. I mean, I found that through a lot of things. It's like, I mean, even with MIDI control over stuff, I don't tend to end up mapping to knobs, because honestly, I just can't be bothered. I end up just using the mouse. If I'm in software, use the mouse, you know. Because it just seems to be too much of a faff, and then you get confused which track am I on, which map to thing. You know, it all becomes this multifunctional nightmare. Whereas with the mouse, you know what you're doing because you're pointing at the thing you're trying to move. I mean, I'm lazy ultimately, I think. But with the Push 3, which is supposed to be a self-contained thing, it's like it's become a different thing, because the whole reason why the Push was good, I thought, for people who liked it, was it was running Ableton. So you were using Ableton Live. That was the point. But this standalone version doesn't have Ableton Live running in it. It uses something else, I suppose. So what's the point? I'm not quite sure what the point of that is. Surely the point is that you should be running Ableton Live with all your plugins and all your instruments and stuff. So you're using it to run a session with Ableton Live, and then what? You unplug it and can't do any of the things. I don't quite get what they're after. I mean, I guess they're after the standalone single machine doing stuff market. Yeah, I get that. You know, your MPC Live people, your trackers, your you know, your Deluge, all those sorts of things. Yeah, great. But it, you know, the whole reason why Push was good was its connection between Ableton Live, I think. So it's a bit of a weird one, is my thought on that. Yeah, well, Nicholas, definitely thank you for the vote of confidence. I would, I would love to. I'd love to. I'm not too sure about how easy it is for me to tour at the moment in terms of family and childcare and that kind of thing. But who knows? I mean, certainly with my youngest now going to high school, it changes everything. It changes their dynamic again, so that they become a lot more independent. I mean, we left them this weekend. It was me and my wife who went off to this party, and they survived staying at home by themselves with a 16-year-old looking after them. I'm assuming that that's all legal. So they're growing up, and they are. It's amazing to watch. They're doing their own thing and coping with it. It's fantastic, and that brings a new amount of space for me and Mariah to do our thing, or to do different things too, which is very cool. So maybe I am hoping to get to Bristronica this year. I'm not down to play or anything. I'm just hoping to go along. That's the only, I mean, I imagine I'll be going to Synth Fest later in the year too. So those both, that's September, isn't it? I think for Bristronica, and then October for Synth Fest. I think that's the plan. You've got a Surface Pro 2, Ken. See, that was before they were even half decent. Do you remember? I mean, the whole Surface release, didn't they do that along with Windows 8? Wasn't that the big thing at the big Microsoft Windows 8 reveal, is that everyone had the original Surface under their seat? That was some kind of fiasco, that was. God blimey. Yeah, Nicholas. I happily do a live set from here. I've done a few of those in the past. They have been good. I mean, often these things turn into a bit of a live performance, but to try to do something a little bit more thoughtful and put together, yes, absolutely. I think that's good. I mean, there's these whole you go through a lot of psychological thought processes. At least I do with these sorts of things. You've got these warring factions in your head. You've got one saying that you mustn't give everything away. You've got to save that performance that you're doing. It's gold, and you could stick it onto a CD and sell that, and it'll be a huge hit. And if you do that in a live stream, then no one's going to buy it because they've already seen it and they can listen to it for free. You've got that sort of going on in your head. But of course, the CD thing, people buying it, is never going to happen. But it doesn't mean that your brain doesn't have that argument with itself. Similarly, I mean, we're talking about 50 people seeing it live, and no one's going to remember if you then take that out and do that again. Although, of course, I can't do it again because this is modular, and I can only do it the once, and then it's different. Excuse me. No, interesting. Well, have I got to the bottom? Yeah, really go to town on the visuals. Yeah. No, that doesn't really happen. I did this one live stream where I tried to incorporate the Critter and Guitar-y Easy thing that I have, and it just looked awful. Oh. Yeah. I do have other plans for visualizations. I've never quite cracked it. You've got too much to do anyway, too much to do. You had the RT. Nice. Yeah, no, I got to the bottom of all those. So if you've asked something that I've missed, feel free to ask it again, because I've just kind of skipped through. How is the idea of bringing lyrics into modular world going? Yeah. It's sporadic, I would say, to say the least. I mean, I saw Finley Shakespeare recently, who has moved on to using sort of Digitac Electron boxes, but still in a very similar vibe to what he was using modular for. And he does songs and singing, and he's brilliant, totally brilliant, absolutely. And I can see myself doing something like that to some degree. I don't know. Again, it's something that one wrestles with internally as to whether, because there's this whole thing. I mean, there is a prevailing attitude in electronic music, which is one of those. Well, I only like electronic music because there's no flipping words in it. Because I don't want to hear someone running on about love or death or politics or something. I just want the beats. Just want the beats. I just want the tune so I could dance for 4 hours non-stop. That sort of thing. So there is that feel in electronic music, but it also the fact that exists, I think, releases a lot of the tension around music making. Because if we don't have to sing, because singing is quite a it takes a lot of courage. It's a very emotional projection of yourself, and it does not suit everyone at all. Whereas you can be just as creative in turning dials and creating patches and creating music that way without having to engage that one particular part of yourself in order to sing well. Because the whole thing of having to sing, I think, is such a gatekeeping exercise, and it narrows down the field of what people are allowed to do. If you have to have a singer, it really makes it much more difficult to enter into the world of music. If you can get rid of that, then you can just make noise and sound and really enjoy that. So I absolutely understand the preference of just having instrumental music. I get that. But I don't think it should all be that. That's the thing. I think that's fine, But I think that there also some of the greatest electronic tracks do have lyrics and songs and that kind of thing. You know, if you're thinking about Depeche Mode or Human League or the Eurythmics or Howard Jones or Yazoo, you know, whatever you want to go through, they were all about creating songs. And I think that still remains interesting. And it is, and there's I think the key thing about that is that it absolutely stamps your individuality upon the music that you're making. Because we can all sound a little bit like this. And and anyone could be doing this. I mean, obviously it's something that I put together, and so therefore it's individually mine. And but then if I lend my voice to that, it suddenly stamps this whole other character upon it, this whole other identity, And there's definitely something in that, something worthwhile in that, worth pursuing, I think. It's just, I've had writer's block about writing songs for decades, I mean, when I was an angry young man, no problem. I could bash stuff out and I could sing it full blast at people, telling them about the stupidness of the government or their lifestyles or, whatever, capitalist pigs, and could do it without irony, completely emotionally, and thought I was changing the world. I could do all that. Since having a family, it just feels different. I don't know how Billy Bragg keeps on doing it. I don't know how anybody keeps on doing it, really. When you see people singing, I feel very different about it than I used to. In fact, I mean, one of the wonderful things about playing in a band, and just a covers band, we're singing a bunch of old songs that we think people will like at a village fete. So it's sort of bluesy, poppy, summery type songs, and it's been good because it re-injects the sense of fun and how the words don't really matter. Because you're reading some of these songs, you're going, what on earth has he said? I have no idea. I had no idea he was talking about this at all when I was singing along to this. And you're learning these songs. And you realise that maybe the words don't really matter. It's just a projection of attitude in some way. And so what I'm trying to say is, I think at this time in my life, I tend to get hung up on the words, hung up on what it is I'm trying to say. I don't want to be telling people off. I want to bring songs of hope, which is a really hard subject to write about these days, but things about hope and life and love and, But in order to do that, you have to get over yourself, and I find it hard to get over myself. I'm my own worst enemy, I think, in that sort of thing. So, yeah, lyrics and songs, it's still something that's very much in my head. We shall see. Because, I mean, because in some ways you're looking to put yourself through a whole load of pain and anguish over sort of crafting these songs out that then, 100 people will see or listen to. Is that the point? No, it's never the point though, is it? But you kind of like it to be the point sometimes. Oh dear. Somebody soldered something. Oh, you did? Great. Making sound machines. You did a molten motion meter. Good for you. I've got one here. No! Was that important? No, that was a spiky thing. So this HAR is the 1U kit. So the release date on this is the 5th of June. So is that this week or next week? Next week. So I've got to put this together and make a video about it. as a build guide. Should be relatively straightforward. And then I'll have two. I'll be able to stick the other one in there too, which will be brilliant. Totally awesome. I have to take something else out. So yeah, so I'm looking to build one, the new one, the 1U one, next week with a bit of luck. But yeah, it's remained useful. I mean, one thing that I found oddly using the 4-channel one is that you don't always fill the channels quite so much as I do with the 3-channel one. And I discovered that if you leave some of the faders up, it completely destroys the audio if you've got nothing plugged into it, because it just generates voltage if you've got nothing plugged into it. And of course, it then adds to channel 3. So if you've got audio going through channel 3 and you then pump in 10 volts, it just pushes it into a place where your speakers can't cope with it. So, and it's something I never encountered before. So it's not exactly a flaw. It's just that it's something that happens that it would be good to be aware of if you're wondering what the heck is going on with this. You know, if you've not got something patched in the input, then it's going to be generating 10 volts. And you've got nothing patched into the output. It's going to be adding that to channel 4 on the 1U or channel 3 on the other one. You know, it's just one of those things, isn't it? Just one of those things. Ugh. What would I choose? Godspeed Plus or the Bastille Pizza? I have no idea what that is. Godspeed Plus. Endorphins. Oh, okay. It's a 0 VCO core. Sounds like music. Compact digital VCO with auto-tuning. Oh, well, you know, the description does sound similar. That's interesting. Is it new? Don't know why I've never heard of that before. I usually think I've got, you know, my ear to the ground. Interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, it looks nice. It looks interesting, the Godspeed. I've not, as I say, I've not come across that. The pizza is great, though. It's just quite easy. I mean, you just stick something through it and then you just sort of fiddle with it a little bit and it creates interesting changes, which is what I like. I haven't really mastered it. I haven't sat down. I should probably sit down and do a proper review of it at some point so that I can actually grasp what it is that it's doing. That might be nice. But I don't always feel that I have to. You know, sometimes I find that with a module, you discover what it is you like about it and just stick with that. And you don't have to know it inside out. You just do the bits that you quite like. But I'm finding that a little bit with Zaps at the moment. I'm working on doing a review of Zaps, which is taking far too long because it's actually a really deep module. There's loads and loads in it. Plankton have just done a bunch of videos on it trying to demonstrate all its little bits and pieces, and in some ways that's making it harder, because what I really liked about it was kind of the surface stuff that I could get into straight away, mess about without having to open the manual, and just like have a really good time. And there's a lot more to it than that, and I'm only using kind of part of what it's capable of doing, but I really like that part and having fun there. And in some ways getting deeper into it is like, oh well, you know, it's now a little bit complicated. I'd like to stick with the simple stuff sometimes. Is everything going to sound the same after the Spectraphonics ship? Nah, people keep coming up with no, I don't think so. There is a much broader church, I think, than we sometimes think. You know, we imagine that everyone has a DFAM and everyone's using that. Everyone has a mimeophone and everyone's using that. When no, that's not really the case. The breadth and variety and diversity that's out there in Eurorack is quite extraordinary. Everyone's using different things. I mean, I'm using this. You know, so not a mimeophone in sight. But I should put it through. I need to put it through. I need to put that. What's that going to? That's going to the thing to there. That's going out to there. That's going to there to the thing. I'm going to take that out of there. Plug that into. Where's it gone? Oh, it's there. Plug it into there, and then plug that out of there, back into there. Let's try that. Momentarily distracted there. Ian suggested we don't need a mixer. We can just get the Aria Compact stuff from Roland. Wire all those together. Yeah, maybe. Nah, I should be getting one of those. I got into all sorts of trouble over the S1 from Roland because I had this. It had like this massive miscommunication where Roland got in touch with me saying, "Hey, would I like to review the Roland S1 for Gear News?" And I said, "Yeah, all right, that sounds like a good idea. Why don't you send it over?" And I thought that's fine. I then got I didn't. I was blissfully unaware of the craziness that caused, apparently, because Roland only had one spare to give to the entirety of Gear News, which is a multifaceted international company, and they very much wanted it in Germany and were very frustrated that Roland weren't going to give it to them. They kept saying, no, we're giving it to this other guy. And they said, no, we must have it. And so Roland came back to me saying, I've got this other guy at Gear News Germany who's insisting that we send it to them. And I said, oh, well, I said, you could send it to them if you like, but hey, if you send it to me, I'll be able to do a video. So I kind of just made my case as to why sending it to me would be more interesting than sending it to my companion in, what was it, number in Germany. And then I got dragged in front of the CEO of Gear News saying, what on earth are you doing? it sounds, because according to them, it sounded like I was sort of underhandedly trying to get Roland to send me something which they needed to have because, you know, they're in charge and they wanted to do a video on it and review and that kind of thing. And I had no idea that it caused all this furore, and there's all sorts of people being shouted at and being fired and stuff. And if they'd just asked me, I could have like gone, no, it's just that Roland asked if I wanted to do it, and I said yes. It wasn't for any other reason. So anyway, I eventually it all got cleared up because I sort of reached out to somebody to say, is it all right if I review this, or is there some kind of problem? At which point they went, there's a huge problem. What are you doing? So I went, oh, all right, fine. So I said to Roland, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Best thing to do is to send it to Gear News Germany, and sort of left it at that. But it was a whole thing, apparently, that I was completely oblivious to. But anyway, as luck would have it, Sound on Sound would like me to review it, and so Roland is sending me one anyway. Which to me is personally hilarious, but it doesn't make any difference. But that means I'll have the whole set, which is kind of fun, because they're fun little units. And I think the S1 is probably going to be the funnest. I mean, the T8 is pretty groovy. You've got everything that you would use with a 303 and an 808, really, all just running together. The other two, I never did really wrap my head around the other two. I mean, the vocal transformer, again, it's kind of, no, that's not my scene, man. It's a bit like vocodering, isn't it? So that and the Juno one is quite nice. It's just, they just play together really well. But the S1, which is the SH101 Jobby, I believe is supposed to be good fun. They're just all a bit small. But we shall see. I hope to have a go at that very soon. That should be good fun. Game music dollars. What have I got DIY coming up? I can tell you. I can show you if you like. I've got acres of it. What are my views? Mr. Shouty Sunglasses Man. What are your views on the Moog? I mean, I guess you're trying to be seen in the comments, and that's fair enough. I respect that. That's all right. I've never had a go on a Subharm Monicon. When Moog sent me the Sound Studio to review, I really hoped it would have one in, and it sadly did not. It was a DFAM and a Mother 32, which I already had. I don't know. I don't really know what it is, I'm afraid. I've seen people having fun with it. I mean, I think that little Moog ecosystem of the Mother 32, DFAM and Subharm Monicon are an interesting place because it's all semi-modular and can be patched into each other. I think they work really well together, and Moog have put a lot of effort into creating the patch books and the space in which you can run those three together. So I think it works brilliantly in that way. It's kind of modular and not doing modular. I think you can sit there with those Moog synths and just have a really nice time looking at that environment, playing in that environment, without having to have any of this other rubbish at all. And I think that's an interesting and more different experience. So I think that works really well. That I don't know how I would use it in my thing, because I'm just ultimately doing this. And I don't know how subharmonicon would fit in that. So it's purely my ignorance, I would have to say. Is music the universal language for you? Yeah, I expect so. Yeah, I don't think there's anything quite as extraordinary as it. And it's certainly something that can break through boundaries, language barriers, of course, but also massively open to misinterpretation. Hi, Aerofoil. Good to see you. Yeah, synth solos. See, there's a question. Because I hang out sometimes with proper synth people. On the internet a little bit. And I find they fascinate me. Absolutely fascinate me. Them with all the synthesizer solos, they got subharmonicon. You've got the subsequent 37, things like that. Moog little mono synths, and you go with the mod wheel and the pitch wheel all in there doing their synth solos. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And I kind of like it. I kind of don't. I mean, one of my kids as well has been going through a lot of weird sort of jazz music. I don't know what to call it. Soft jazz, slow jazz, jazz funk. Oh, I don't know. But they've got a lot of synth solos in that sort of stuff, which is kind of, there's an element of hilarity to it at the same time as going, wow, that's impressive. I still can't quite see the synth solo comparing to the guitar solo. I still find that difficult. It can be done well and can be done differently, and I think that's more important. Sometimes the widdly nature of it is a little bit lost on me. I think I kind of like a solid synth line like you find in Depeche Mode, Human League, etc., etc. I kind of prefer that over the improvised solo lines. But hey, I mean, I might be doing that myself. Now that I've got my mixer, that I can put. Hey look, there's another feature, right? To reverb. And that's this, right? Ready? They call that balance. Balance. Other places it's labelled as pan. This is balance. I'm just messing with you. There's that one too. Does that ever do anything? Pre-fader level. Puts it over there on that monitor source. I thought because you get the monitor. I don't know. Oh dear, I'm terrible. Yeah, random words can work. It's just, again, it fights with my inner authenticity, you know. Because I overthink these things. It's like it's like my approach to prayer. Some people in churches can just pray out instantly, ta-da, and it happens, and it's a string of sort of mostly sort of hackneyed old phrases, and I just kind of feel that it has to just bubble out of me in as if it's not me kind of craziness. You know, it has to become such a thing. I don't want it to be me. Does that make sense? I don't know what I'm talking about now. I'm looking for the authenticity. I don't like to force it. And so if I'm going to write words about something, they have to be something which means something, don't they? So if I'm just taking words out of it, it's like back in the old prog rock days when they used to just talk about dragons and castles and that kind of thing. You think, well, what's the point of that? Surely a song has to be something which is going to either break my heart, change my life, or change. I mean, ultimately, you want girls to dance to it, isn't that the thing? And then they write diary entries about it. So, you know, in my teenage head, obviously, it's thinking about those sorts of things. I don't know. As I say, I overthink these things, and that's the reason why I get nothing done. Ever. Yeah, I mean, Steve makes an interesting point about it should be recreatable. But should it, you see? Because another way of approaching this that I've thought about a lot is surely if your Eurorack is essentially improvised and randomized, then the singing should be too. It should be improvised in the moment. You know, that's, I mean, you get a lot of that in people going, you know, la or something alongside their Euro rack, and then looping that and layering that. And I've done that, with Hannah, the singer that I work with sometimes. You know, that's completely interesting and valid. Excuse me. But I've often wondered if there's a way of just singing along with it. I think that will take a lot of confidence and a lot of practice. A practice in order to get good at improvising it, if that makes sense. And also perhaps what you need to work on is a bunch of words or phrases that you would just like to bring into it. So it doesn't have to be a fully formed song, but it could be a whole bunch of stuff. So you're not doing a rap battle where you're just trying to spit rhymes off the top of your head necessarily, although that too. But maybe there's a way of working on stuff that you could bring into whatever happened, and you just have to be really attuned at picking out melody. Yeah, I mean, that could be interesting. I mean, I could turn this on, right? And I could sing. No, obviously I couldn't. Because it's all a bit all over the place. But one could imagine that one could sing along to something, don't you think? In an improvised way. Maybe that's the way forward. Maybe it's the Cleo Lane within me that could start scat talking. Yeah. Oh, so you can make political tracks without lyrics. See, that's very deep. You can imagine Suella Braverman listening to that going, oh, that's it, I'm going to change my life. That's it. You know, that tune has affected me so deeply, my political views have now reversed. You know, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm being flippant, obviously, but no, it is absolutely possible to affect change through instrumental music. No, you can't have any Descartes' dream because it's not finished. Nearly. I need to sit down with it for a day, and I can get it done. Am I a road man? Don't know what that means. CP sound. In it. Yeah, I don't know. It's me just being street. Is that what you mean? Could be. Oh, cool. Yeah, AJH does a lot of good stuff that works with Moog, you know, very Moog-centric modular. A Hapax. Okay. I mean, it's this finger ultimately, isn't it? No, well, no, I say that it's the middle finger. No, it's definitely, no, is it the middle finger? It's never going to be these two, so you can count those out to start with. It's not going to be a thumb either. So that kind of leaves you with these two. I think those are your fader fingers, because you're going to do two at once. Whoa. Why can't I get that? It's just not sitting in the pocket, is it? So something. Too many confusing gates going on. Anyway, slight distraction there. Jazz Fusion, is that what we're talking about? What about the new RYK module, asked Jeff. Yeah, interesting. Well, I mean, Jake does some weird stuff with that. Always looking to do something different, and he has such an aesthetic going on. Really, just fascinating. I mean, am I a big bandparks person? Am I looking for filter arrays? I don't know. It just depends on what's interesting about it. I mean, I've only sort of seen it from a distance, and understanding the idea of 4 channels of animated bandpassing filter arraying going on is kind of interesting. So yeah, it just, you know, how it just all comes down to how much fun that's going to be. Could be fun. Can we do a Vince Clarke night? Yeah, maybe. How are you doing a lot of stereo with the Eurorack? Not at all. I'm not doing any stereo. Stereo I find frustrating in Eurorack. It makes everything too big, too much. I don't know that I need it. I like my Mix BX mixer of having 6 channels of mono, which I can then pan to different places. Or you know, quite into those. There's a module, isn't it, like the Hedge it's called or something, which essentially just has a bunch of inputs, which is automatically panned to different places in the stereo thing, which is great. I just want stuff spread out a little bit so it's not all just fudged in the middle. But a lot of effects use stereo, which it just uses up channels on your mixer, I find. So, like, for instance, the White Rabbit here has only got the single out. No, it doesn't. It has a stereo output, but I'm only using a single one of it. Of course, I could use the ping pong sort of thing, but I would stick a stereo effect on the end. So, for instance, I've got, this is all sort of going through the Rosie over here, which just has mono inputs, but gives a stereo output, and it gives you a stereo return from an effect. So I'm putting it through a stereo reverb, so that gives it a little bit of space. But mostly with other effects like, you know, the Nautilus here or other delays, I tend to only use it in mono, because then if I use it in stereo, I've got to find 2 channels on something. Obviously with a Big Six, maybe that's no longer a problem. Maybe. Maybe, but honestly, stereo is not something that I'm hankering for. You know, I mean, my set. I'm not set up for pristine audio, anything. It doesn't matter. I mean, it all could just be coming out of a mono speaker. I don't really care. I've got a pair of monitors over there by my computer. They're 25 years old and they're a bit crappy and small. They're MS5s, Yamaha, I think it is. You know, they've been great. They do plenty for me. So I'm not, when I'm playing on this, I'm not set up in order to appreciate the stereo-ness of anything in particular. But if I'm recording something, I would like it to spread out a little bit. That's for sure. But this sort of current fascination with stereo filters and stereo oscillators and this, that, and the other, it's not, I don't feel that's particularly necessary, really. Yeah, having stereo at the end of the chain, yeah, I like that. I like that. But to have to filter in stereo, it just sounds like a pain in the ass to me. Oh, and there's somebody with a whole bunch of boxes of stereo modules that are just about to send me going, oh, damn it. So, you know, I'm open to ideas. I'm open to being enlightened and corrected on these sorts of things. But generally speaking, mono is honestly fine for me. Thanks very much. Less cables that way. Street, yes, thank you. I'm only ever street ironically. Yeah, I mean, I think it takes a certain amount of courage to leave a fader in its position, you know, because you've got to own that. You've got to have an overwhelming sense of confidence that is the place for that fader. I mean, particularly, I mean, this does have a little bit of labeling at the side, but not a whole lot. So you are freewheeling it right in the middle. I mean, there's a, yeah, that's 5 apparently. 5 what? Nobody knows. That's 0. But I mean, I can hear stuff, so how can it be 0? That's the question, really, isn't it? That's 10, which is less than 5. I mean, one could argue that it's -10, but it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that, it just says 10. This is infinity, so that must be infinity loud, but it doesn't appear to be. Whereas that's 5, but then that's also 5. See what I'm saying? I mean, the places for confusion on a mixer are legion. Ba 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 ba. Book of Malachi reads good to this music. Oh yeah. Nice. Okay. I would like to point out that I haven't played with every module that exists. I haven't. I mean, I'd like to. Double mono options. Yes. I mean, that is interesting. The fact that you could use something twice. I mean, that often happens, I think, with stereo filters. Yeah. Stereo filters can often be used in series or in parallel. At least that's my understanding, not actually having any. Being able to do the same with effects would be interesting. My only thoughts on that. Yeah, no, that would be interesting. Are you able to get a signal through without it bleeding into the other side? I suppose is the thing. Is that normal? Because I guess I'd have to ultimately use the same settings and actually going to duplicate those. But then it gets increasingly, you get that digital frustration with displays not showing what they're showing. But ultimately, if you had a delay that you could send 2 different things through without them getting in each other's way, I think that would be interesting or helpful. Would anyone really notice? Maybe it's only me that would enjoy that sort of thing, particularly if it's ultimately the same. Then does it matter? Does it matter? These are questions, aren't they? These are questions. Yeah, I mean, mid-side stuff is not, to be honest, it's not something I really understand. I've come to understand side chaining in terms of compression to allow a kick drum through as you pull everything else down in a kind of a throbbing kind of way. I've started to understand that. Mid-side, which is something which comes up in Doors and Studio One and that kind of thing, kind of all the time. I don't really know what that is or what I'm trying to achieve with that. particularly. It's just something I've not investigated, and probably should understand what that means. And I'm sure someone will say, "Oh, it means this," and that will be of no use to me whatsoever. Isn't it something to do with compression again? Like I say, sidechaining I've come to understand a bit more now, but only in one particular application. It's going to be hard enough for me to get my head around the usefulness of compression as it is, because I find compression to be a strange beast that so often I end up taking out, because I kind of feel it makes everything too muddy and too in your face, and I like a little bit more dynamic than that. What? What's the point? What's the point of Thunderbolt 3? It's a strange question. Monotheism. Yeah. Hey, Paulie, good to see you. Yeah, Sunday nights is a popular night for live streams, so it seems. My excuse is that I've been doing it for many years now. These upstarts with their synthy live streams on a Sunday night, how dare they? So that's my excuse. And honestly, there's enough people out there, I think, now that we can share a few live streams and clash from time to time. It used to feel really important not to clash, and it's still, I mean, ideally, absolutely, but excuse me, sometimes you just got to kind of go with it. Got to fit it in where you can. You can't keep trying to fit around everybody else. Oh, yeah, somebody asked what DIY I had coming up. Let me show you. I got my music over everything. Oh, I've got to do that. Oh, my goodness. What's that? Is that a thing? See my mates. No, that's not a one. What's that? Forget what that is. Forget you. Oh, there's that. Got anything over there? Oh yeah, I know. So on my immediate pile on my desk, I mean, other than the one you Molten What's It I've got to do. I've had this for far too long, which is the Atto V Project CDVCA, which is a cool little VCA which uses strange technology and stuff. I've been meaning to do this a long time. In fact, I have their whole project over there somewhere, which is a bit of a bigger build that I would like to do if I could find the time, of course. Venus Instruments just sent me their delay, which is very cool. I understand this is actually a very interesting delay, and the little kit here is very nicely put together. Nice. Looks quite chunky. So yeah, I'd like to do that soon. Very much. Does it say on it what it is? No, I'm just assuming that that's their delay. In here I've got the Apollo Fuel oscillator. There's a whole bunch of oscillators on a single thing. I feel it's missing something. Oh. Yeah, the oscillator. Yeah, front panel and PCB stuff there. So, yeah, want to do that soon. I got this marvellous thing from 3 Tom. He sorted me out at Superbooth and stuffed it in my hand, and I had to carry it. I think it was one of the reasons why we were stopped at security on the way back. We had a terrible everything at every point along our journey, me and Arthur, to and from Berlin, there was some issue. Every time we had to hand documents over to somebody, there was a problem of some kind. And when we went through security, actually, Stein, you're like this. And we went through security in Berlin on the way back. Our bags got trapped in the X-ray machine. I mean, after farting around with their X-ray your body machine, which I didn't appreciate very much, and Arthur had left something in his pocket, like a tissue or something, so they had to search him, pat him down, which he was not pleased about at all. But then we had to stand there for about half an hour as our bags did not come out of the machine, and none of the bloody security people were saying anything. They were just staring at their screens and kind of talking amongst themselves, and me and Arthur stand there going, what you know, what is it, what's the problem? And yet the machine would not cough up our bags, our trays of stuff. And so we just kept on hanging out. And eventually somebody, I think, said something about, oh, there's a calibration problem. Like, oh, okay. Because I had this in my bag, and I was convinced that it was that was causing the problem. Arthur had been given this lovely made machined metal dice from Instruo, and he thought that was the problem that was in his tray. And that had probably upset the machine. Maybe it was made of some kind of radioactive material or something. It was blowing the whole thing up. We just did not know because they weren't telling you anything, which I thought was just awful. They should have said, it's all right, mate. It's just, you know, it's just a machine. It will take a minute and we'll get there. But anyway, eventually they coughed up my stuff. And then Arthur's was sent down a different chute, and he had to go and talk to the German security who were rifling through all his things. And I was trying to get to him, but the problem is that I'd taken my belt off and like my shoes and everything was in the security thing. And I was trying to put all this stuff back on and stuff my expensive Surface and my passport back into my bag. And it's like, Arthur, hang on, I'll be there in just a minute. And he's been interrogated by the Berlin security people. And basically what it was those waffles. It was the treacle waffle things, whatever they're called, that you gave us in that bag. They thought that could have been an explosive or something. I imagine on the X-ray machine they were so dense that there was just this big kind of cylindrical stack of strange looking treacle wafers that probably was impenetrable in his bag. So they had to sort of put that under a scanner and then scan it with something and poke it about to make sure it wasn't going to explode. So yeah, that was your fault. So thanks for that. It wasn't this at all. And this, anyway, what I was trying to say, this is the 3 Tom Steve's MS22. It's like a pair, I think, of MS22 filters. Is it? It's a dual VCF. Yeah, so I think it might even be a stereo filter. So there I go and talking about I don't have a stereo filter. I do, or will do. So yeah, looking quite forward to building that. I like the biblical theme on the front. You see, very topical. And then I've got something here. Oh, this is more Apollo View, the Curious, which is the complement to the rabbit hole, I think. I think. I've got loads of other. I mean, I've got a whole drawer of DIY down there that I need to look at some point. Not to mention all the Cosmo stuff and the Decals Dream and but these are the ones that are currently on my mind that I want to do soon. Yeah, no, they're definitely worth the hassle. They are fabulous things. Sadly for me, I don't eat sugar, so they were wasted on me, but the kids loved them. They absolutely loved them. Ooh. But it was like the very last thing we got to, which was in Amsterdam, the flight to Norwich. After, I say, every time we handed stuff over, there was like a problem. They're looking at it and then they're going through it again. They're going, hang on, this isn't quite right, and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, we finally get to our last flight back to Norwich. and we hand over our things. And she goes, "Oh, hang on a minute." I go, "Oh, you've got no idea the sort of day we've had with these bloody documents. What's the problem now?" I said with a little bit less good spiritness that I'd had previously. And she said, and she fussed around a bit. She said, "Just give us a minute." She fussed around and then said, and gave us them back. Said, "No, I just upgraded your seats." And it's like, "Oh, that's really nice." Almost burst into tears. Thank you very much. So we were able to sit on slightly leathery seats with a little bit more leg room. But it was only like a 40-minute flight to Norwich, so there's like no time for champagne or anything like that. They just bumped us up the seats, which was nice. Never travel with treacle. Why were Vactrols banned? It was to do with the chemicals inside. Something, make explosives with. Yeah. So just going back through the comments, that's funny to me. Yeah, Vanelia, I think you're just going through the struggles of using external hardware. You know, it's not designed for portability. Stroop waffles, is that what they're called? Stroop waffles? Stroop waffles. Would it be a V sound? Stroop, phonetically educate me. Cadmium, there you go. Yeah. Well, you say at Airport Bar, unfortunately, it's the same where we catch the flight to Norfolk. It's also where you go to Bristol. And famously, at this particular airport in Amsterdam, this particular gate, is where me and Gaz were drinking at there's got a little bar there, and we were drinking and talking, and he missed his flight. This was back after Toman Reactor many years ago. We were both down there, and it was just like, oh no, how can that happen? I mean, we're literally next to the gate. You know, his flight is there, and I was trying to look after him because it's Gaz. You know, he's fantastic and all over the place, and we'd already had many pints at this point, and I was trying to be the adult, trying to keep a handle on everything, checking the time, having another drink, checking the time, and his plane literally took off. I mean, they were probably calling for him over the tannoy, but they wouldn't have said Gaz, they would have called him Gaz. I mean, he has this incredible middle name. So I don't know what we would have heard over the tannoy. I still can't quite believe he missed his flight. We were literally standing there. It was just nuts, and I had to leave in Amsterdam as my flight then went. Crazy. So yeah, I try not to use that bar anymore. Strope waffle. Waffle. Strope waffle. I don't think I'm doing that justice somehow. Funny. Anyway, I've been doing this for a couple of hours now. I really should go home or something, because I say I was knackered. I was knackered. So, any last minute questions then before we call it a day? Still playing the same thing. It's amazing. As I say, it's the Zaps in there that I'm currently trying to write a review of. Sometimes the Zaps is so completely awesomely intuitive, and then other times it's completely not. I really feel that should do something. Get hard on the arms. Oh, let's do my arm in. So, weird fishes, yeah. Can you play the fader left? No, I can't. See, I'm not, like I say, I'm not yet experienced enough in the mixer to use my left hand. You know, I feel like I've got a good couple. I mean, as you can see, you know, this is from not really knowing what I'm doing, and so cause myself a bit of an injury. But I reckon that these two fingers now are pretty nearly there. You know, and once I've got these two working together, you know, without having to plaster anything up again, then I think I can start. Then I think I can start training my left hand, and I think that's where the fun lies. Once you've got two hands going in there, because you can keep turning things up, right? Then you turn things down. It's amazing. It's just extraordinary, you know. I mean, I've done a lot of modular stuff and strange, weird stuff, but the turning up and the turning down, I mean, there's nothing quite like that. I think that's going to be awesome. I mean, I don't think these kick out MIDI. So although I can connect it to my computer, I think that's only really for the recording in. So I don't know that I get the turning up and down when recording over USB to the computer, but that's something I'm definitely going to investigate. So that's pretty cool. Clouds Across the Moon. That was a classic song. Like the ocean. Yeah. Haha, badum. Shh. Thoughts on AE modules? Yeah, I think it's a really great idea. I think he's done a marvellous job. I can't believe he's still going. And it still seems to be growing. I think that's fantastic because it's a bugger of an ugly format with fiddly little cables, but sounds great and it is affordable. And he's had a few third parties throw some stuff in. So I think all power to them. All power to them. I think it's really great. Like I say, it doesn't thrill me to look at, but as a functional modular format, I think it's brilliant. Totally brilliant. Yeah, fader burn, man. Hi, hey, hi, K-Tech. Sorry, I'm about to finish up, I think. Have I got my head around particles? Asked Ray. No, I haven't. I don't get it. It's frustrating me because I think I get it, and then it totally doesn't do it. Totally doesn't. I mean, let me demonstrate, right? I mean, maybe it will work this time. But do I know what I'm doing is the question. No. So that makes that interesting. So in my last bit of energy, how am I going to do this? So I'm going to take... I don't know. So I got the trigger. Okay, I got the trigger coming out from Pam's. I'm going to stick the trigger into there. I've got a clock coming in from there, which is running the same sort of clock, so that's going in. That's fine. I then need to take the out, which is this pink thing, which is going into there. All right. So this then needs to go into here to trigger that. Yeah? Are you with me so far? You can't see, that's okay. I can't expect you. I'm trying to explain. So particles is here, right? And what particles does is it takes in a trigger and it sort of can repeat it and can remix it, re-sequence it, something it. So if I was to turn this down to say 32, like that, 32 points, turn my fader up. I'll take out the kick. Now I'm going to need to give it a steady rate, I think, otherwise you won't notice the difference. So that's going into there. So let's take off the trigs. Take off the steps. 7. It feels like it's still getting the same rhythm. All right, let's just take that, right? Alright, just taking that. So I've got this fader on here, right? I've got this set to 32 repeats, I think. So when it's down, it shouldn't be doing anything. If I put it at the top, it then adds triggers up to 32. Yeah, get it? If I turn that up higher, it ratchets. I get that bit. You know, that's alright. I can then go to probability, and so 0 probability of it happening, 100% probability of it happening. That I can understand. Bring it down somewhere between the two. and you get a bit of a pattern, a probability pattern. I get that. If I go to absorb, which is supposed to be a different way of doing probability that absolutely makes sure that the first beat is always there, so it's a bit more musical, I think. It doesn't seem to do anything. I've dragged that down. It's not changed. I don't know. I don't understand why. Maybe I have to turn this thing down up here, but I think... I don't know, it just seems to stay the same. And there was a time when it did work differently. It did do something. I don't know why it's not doing something. Got these other things as well where you can shift, it sort of goes around in a circle and things like that, which is quite interesting. If I can work out a way of using it. So what I'm saying is that the particles, I honestly think I misunderstood it when I purchased it, which I did buy it. I don't know, we sent it to me. I thought, I know exactly what this does. It's a brilliant idea. I'm going to have one. So I took it, built it as a kit, did a video on it, and then once I've started using it, I'm going, I don't really know what this is at all. I do get the ratchet thing, which is cool. It's a nice way of having, it's a bit like having a microgrids or grids, ultimately, where you're kind of turning up the chaos or turning up the intensity. So you've got triggers and stuff running through it, and you can sort of do fills and bits like that by pushing up into those ratchets. So that works. Also just adding probability, so it's creating sort of random patterns of itself. That's okay, that works. But there's a lot more to it that I can't seem to grasp. So it's sitting there at the moment for a point where I have the headspace to give it a bit more of my time. So there you go. That's the honest answer to particles. I'm sure it is as wonderful as I initially thought it was. I just can't seem to bend it to my will at the moment, and probably just requires me looking at it a little bit deeper. Okay, cool. Right, we'll call that a night then. So that's nearly 2.5 bleeding hours. And I've got a busy day tomorrow, bank holiday Monday. I think I'm going bowling, going on a walk, playing games in the evening. I think that's the plan. How's your bank holiday? I got work to do. So I ruined my patch. So I'm sorry about that. Maybe because I'm in absorb mode. Where do I come out of it? I need to do that and set that somewhere and then go back. No, probability. See, I can do that. That makes sense. Really enjoying the Mandrake though. I'm definitely enjoying Pam's. Anyway, distraction. More other things to do. So that'll do us, I think. Thanks ever so much for joining me this evening. Whew. Yeah, so what's coming up? So where are we now? June. So yeah, so look out for the release of the 1U Molten Motion Meter next week or the week after, and I'll be doing a video on the build of that. Yes. Hopefully my planks video might get done this week. I've got, because it's end of the month, I've got a few things I need to finish up first. Otherwise that'll be out the week after, I should think. Be good to get that done and sorted. I've got a lot of other modules I haven't talked about, and I do have the wonderful Winterbloom Castor and Pollux turning up, version 2, which is nice. I really enjoyed the first one, and so I felt I really had to buy the second one when it came out. And I've got a lot of practicing to do for the Village Fair gig in a few weeks. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment with all of that. But obviously I'll keep you updated. Do give us a follow on places like Instagram and stuff. I'll try to keep the news flowing through the website, as I have been doing. That's been kind of interesting and mildly successful on the run up to Superbooth, and then just got a bit too crazy. So I'll try to keep, anything that I find that's interesting that I would just like to highlight, I would try to put on there. Otherwise, I think that'll do for now. So, cool. What games are we going to play? Don't know yet. I think we're going to be down someone, which means we could play Champions of Midgard, which would be really good, because that's a 5-player. That would be the plan. But we shall see. We shall see. So thanks everyone. Thanks for stopping by and all that. I will see you soon, I hope. Take care out there. And if I can find my outro, I'll stick that on. Is it that one? No. It must be that one then. No, that's nothing. I don't want that. That one? No. No. So where's it gone? There we go. That'll do. In fact, I started with this by accident, so I am sorry about that if you saw this at the beginning and thought, oh, it's over already. So anyway, I'll stop rambling now, and I will see you soon. Cheers.